What's going on, football fans? It's me, J.R. Clark, back again with another Pound for Pound ATL Live. Joined as always by my main man, Jonathan Holder. Jonathan, what's going on, brother?
And it's another beautiful day in the neighborhood. Got my house shoes on,
There it is.
and just looking forward to some good conversation. Missed everybody from the off week last week, so I'm
Yeah, it
raring
was
to get back into it, man.
right. It was nice to have, but also kind of like felt out of the norm in a sense. So definitely glad to be back. Got a handful of interesting things to talk about today. So I guess might as well just go ahead and go get on into it. So we are what, a week or so removed from the draft now. The like full like 53-man roster is starting to come into view. Um, may not have the full 53 guys that are going to be on roster on staff yet, but you're getting real close. Rookie minicamp starts this week. Starts
Mhm.
on Friday. Be the first time we get to see our draft selections like in building, like really in building and doing football like things. Obviously, with it being just a 3-day mini camp, there's not going to be like no hidden or nothing like that, of course, but still, kind of gives you the first signal of, hey, okay, we're moving into the next phase of the offseason. Now, I think Bijan Robinson is going to be at the rookie symposium thing. I think I saw that, but I'm not sure if that happens the same weekend as our camp starts. I really hope it doesn't because I want to see Bijan Robinson in the building.
Yeah, yeah. I would love to see him in the building. So hopefully that's the case. Um, you know, but if he goes to the rookie symposium, he goes to the rookie symposium. But I would love to see. We're not going to get. It's not going to be like a normal like practice and training camp or anything like
Right.
that. But you're going to see some reports from media. You're going to see some stuff like that, I would absolutely look forward to it with hearing about Bijan, hearing about Bergeron, hearing about Harrison, Clark, Clark Phillips, just hearing about all those guys. I want to like really see, you know, I just wanted to hear about more of them like
Yeah,
out there on the field.
exactly. Willie asked, "What's the rookie symposium?" I don't know if it's actually called symposium, but it's where they get a lot of the like high profile rookies from the draft class together, and for them, it's like a rookie U kind of deal. Kind of gives them the first like um, exposure to some of the things that they're going to be exposed to in the NFL. I think in years past we had like Desmond Trufant went, and I'm trying to think of, I think Vic Beasley went as well. So we've had a handful of players go there. So Jonathan, you froze over there. Oh, we might have lost Jonathan for a minute. We'll see what happens. I'm gonna remove him for the time being until I see him come back. um, so I guess let's move into some of the more interesting things. As a lot of y'all already know, that we signed Trey Flowers, cornerback formerly of the Cincinnati Bengals, and um, I think he was a Seahawks draft pick. He spent time as a safety in college, then transitioned to a corner because the Seahawks like their big long corners. I think he's like 6'2", a little over 200 pounds. Got to the Bengals, transitioned back to the safety, and played on special teams. So we signed him to a 1-year deal, which adds yet again to the secondary, um, which is starting to get crowded, to be completely honest. Now you got obviously AJ Terrell, Jeff Okuda, Mike Hughes, uh, D. Alford, Darren Hall, um, and now you're adding in like Cornell Armstrong, obviously, and Tre Flowers. So that's starting to become a very crowded room. MJ says Bengals played Tre Flowers primarily on tight ends. He played very well in the role. I'm assuming Falcons will use him in the same role. The size and speed match up very well against tight ends. Yeah, he was used as like a tight end eraser, and could very well be used in that same type role here in Atlanta, or possibly used as. I think there's going to be a big open competition for the nickel role. Honestly, if I were to have to like think about it right now here on the what do we got, the 9th of May, I think your other outside corner is Jeff Okuda. At least I think that's what they're banking on. And then you're going to have a fight for the nickel spot. I think it's going to be a very like open-ended competition for the nickel spot. And I'll be interested to see how that comes out. Dre Harrison says, didn't we trade Jalen Hawkins? No, we haven't traded Jalen Hawkins yet, but that may happen depending on what transpires through the through camp. Chris says, say goodbye to Darren Hall. Somebody's gonna lose their spot, right? Like you're not going to carry that many defensive backs on the roster. So is it Darren Hall? Is it Cornell Armstrong? Is it D Alford? It's interesting to see. What I feel like they have done is raise the floor. Like, to be completely honest, I feel like the floor has, gone up. But you got to think about it. The last 2 years, we've dealt with injuries in the secondary, whether it be to Casey Hayward. The year before, it was Isaiah Oliver. So we've dealt with secondary issues throughout the last couple of years, and it feels like they don't want to deal with that again. It feels like that, if they deal with it, they don't want to have a TJ Green out there covering. I think it was it Jamar Chase or something? I can't remember who. That game where they had TJ Green out there trying to cover, but it wasn't pretty. That much is for sure. So let's see. If Jonathan can't come back, I'm gonna be relying on the chat. So I hope y'all got some questions tonight. King 7 says, I'm concerned about our wide receiver position the most, and if Drake gets injured, which I really hope he doesn't, it's going to get ugly and predictable in the offense, and that's where Terry will be under fire. Yeah, I mean, you can't fix it all in one off season. I felt like they maybe did a pretty good job of, making better strides on guys that will compete better as far as like Mac Hollins and, maybe a better version with Scotty Miller versus Demarius Byrd. Maybe there was a disconnect there. But either way, I think that is like right now, that is probably like my biggest concern is wide receiver 2. And I use that loosely, where I think it really will be like the pass catcher 2 or 3 or pass catcher 3 or 4. I think we're going to be running a lot of 12 personnel this year, and that's going to be obviously Janu Smith and Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and Bijan Robinson. But Tre Flowers is an interesting addition. They keep like churning this the defense, which is good to see because, according to a lot of people, we didn't spend a ton of draft capital on the defense. So, hey, I think Jonathan might be back. Are you back?
Man, hopefully, hopefully I'm back for good. But yeah, everything just
everything just locked up on you.
It just went. Internet was gone. I was like, what is going on? And so I was about to connect on my phone, but that was giving me issues. And then all of a sudden everything came back up. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, hopefully it'll stick with us this time because me sitting here talking to myself for an hour was not going to be pleasant for anybody. I went ahead and jumped into the Trey Flowers deal as that
Okay.
being like the most relevant news that we've had. Did you have any thoughts on the like Trey Flowers deal?
I mean, just it's more competition into
Right.
like an already crowded room. It seems like,
Yeah.
um, you know, if the guy can, be like, a potential nickel guy. I mean, he's got like he doesn't necessarily scream nickel to me, at least not nickel in the sense of he's the nickel slot guy.
Right.
At 6'3", 200 pounds, he seems like more of uh, a guy you would probably want on the outside, just because of the length.
Yeah, that's what
But
Seattle tried to do with him. They tried to convert him from safety to corner because of that length, and it didn't necessarily work out for them. He did find a little bit of success in the with the Bengals as like a tight end eraser, which
yeah,
could lead to like a bigger nickel type situation.
yeah. So yeah, I would see him more as like that box safety, tight end coverage guy.
Right. We got a question from Willie Doc. If you want to throw that up while I try to pull it up. Let's see.
There it is. And
2020. There it is. There it is.
Willie Doc with the $5. Since they say you have to judge draft class 3 years in, can you rate the 2020 draft?
All right. So the 2020 draft, I had to get like refreshed of who all that was. So that was AJ Terrell in the first round,
A plus.
Marlon Davidson in the second round,
Yeah.
Hennessy in the third round,
Eh,
Michael Walker in the fourth, Hawkins in the fourth, and then Sterling Hofstetter in the seventh, the punter. So
he's not on the. He's no longer on. Marlon Davidson's no longer on the team. Jalen Hawkins and Michael Walker. We'll see if maybe they can kind of get a new lease on life this year.
yeah, those two guys, I had high hopes for both Michael Walker and Jalen Hawkins, to be honest. And they've both had like up and down like
Mm-hmm.
careers so far. Like you've seen some flashes of Michael Walker being decent. He started out last year as the Mike linebacker. By the end of the season, lost his job. We'll see if he can rebound. I kind of compared him to a poor man's like Isaiah Simmons in the fact that he was a very versatile player. So far, sometimes versatile players don't necessarily get their skill set harnessed, and they
They're
don't.
kind of a jack of all trades, master of none
Right,
situation.
right. And Jalen Hawkins just never really did seem to really get stability under him. But with both of them being fourth round picks, you're looking at guys who are that's teetering on like what I would call rotational players.
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense, they both fill the role as a rotational player. I just
And
don't
maybe
know.
maybe that's what they need to be, like Michael Walker as like the guy.
Mhm.
Now, doesn't mean you can't find the guy in the fourth round or
No,
fifth
you
round
definitely
or
can.
whatever. But as a fourth round guy, if he turns out to not be the guy at middle linebacker, but he is a good special teams guy, and if he's a guy that you can bring in and not completely fall off a cliff kind of guy,
Right.
then I think that'll be a decent return on investment. Now I'll say AJ Terrell A plus knocked it
Oh
out of
yeah.
the park on
Which
that
is
one.
hilarious because in like what I pulled up so I could see the picks was CBS Sports, and
Mm-hmm.
they gave that grade a C plus for
Mm-hmm.
AJ Terrell
Yep.
and a B minus for Marlon Davidson. Now I know that Marlon, as Dre says, just signed a 1 year deal with the 49ers, but if I ain't mistaken, he was out of the league last year. Like I don't think he played for anybody last year, did he?
I don't think he
After
did.
we cut him. Now
I don't think he did.
Marlon Davidson's been oft injured and never really did seem to make the transition to defensive tackle.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately for him, I think he got drafted because of what he was able to do in a 2-point stance with Derek Brown in the middle of that Auburn defense. And I was high on him, but my biggest question was, is he going to be able to make a transition to a 3-tech? Now, this was under Dan Quinn, who that regime absolutely loved getting people and shifting them to a different position.
Which they seem to be doing the same deal with Micah Parsons now. He's bulking up, and he's going to be a straight up defensive end now. When to this point in his career, he's been the guy that you kind of plug in and let
move
him
all over the place and
rush from everywhere.
Yep.
And he's created a huge. Now, this may turn out to be an absolutely stellar move, but I also remember Vic Beasley coming off of a 16 sack season. He's like, "Oh, we're going to turn him into a linebacker."
Yep. Like, what are we doing here?
Now, I'm not saying that if he'd have left Beasley alone, if he'd have left him out at the end, that he would have been just fine. The guy obviously had some issues, but moving him to a different position and having him learn new skill sets right after he led the league in sacks just kind of seems.
That seemed to be like Dan Quinn's favorite pastime. But like Hennessy so far has not been an abject failure. He's been a decent, rotational guy. When you get that guy in the third round, now you're starting to get into that territory in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you hope he turns into a starter, but if nothing else, it's at least a, solid backup or solid rotational guy, and maybe that's what he ends up being.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people were thinking when he showed up at left guard, not center, but left guard, when he showed up at left guard last year with the rest of the offensive line working the way it did, Hennessy looked fine.
Yeah, he looked okay.
He wasn't a turnstile. I saw something today or yesterday that apparently, as much as we bemoaned the pass blocking of the Falcons, that it wasn't, we weren't there with it. Apparently we were top 10. I didn't realize that.
I think we were overall a top 10 offensive line unit, I think. But I'd have to look it up. I haven't dived into that part yet.
Yeah.
But they still gave up a fair amount of sacks.
I would say, Willie Doc, I'm closer to you here. Maybe the Hennessy is maybe a C plus grade, but I could see where Walker, especially Walker and Hawkins, again, where you're drafting them, if they don't turn into solid starters, but they're rotational guys or backup guys that can give you some play if if necessary. I think those are decent picks at those. But yeah, Hofrister is an F because
he didn't even make the roster. But you're drafting a punter in the 7th, and if I am mistaken, he was punting in the XFL, if that counts for anything. And you could say, oh, what does that matter? Well, for a while, Koo was kicking in the AAF, or the AFF or whatever that one, whichever one that one was. AF, I can't even remember now.
It doesn't look, if he can just keep kicking and eventually get himself to a point where somebody looks at him, he can maybe get back into the league at some point.
Exactly.
Everybody's always on the lookout for a new punter somewhere.
That's right. Nick says, bring back Sanu. I'm good. I really like Sanu while he was here. Sanu was one of my, I was sad to see them trade him away, but I think his time has come and gone.
We fleeced. It was New England, wasn't it? We fleeced the hell out of New England on that.
Oh, yeah.
Got a second round draft pick for him.
Yep. So I like Sanu. I like what he did for us, but right now I'm more interested in seeing what this iteration of the Falcons is going to be and letting Arthur Smith and Terry work. So with that being said, I want y'all to I'm going to play this clip. I want y'all to take a listen to it, and we're gonna talk about it afterwards. This was Terry Fontenot, a clip from his interview with the Rich Eisen show. So I want y'all to take a listen to this for just a second, and then we're gonna talk about it. It's about a minute long. Oh well, crap! Let's hit the right button. Bam!
About your draft.
There we go.
I love Bijan Robinson. I thought you should take him. I'm glad that you did. Walk me through your process on taking a running back in this day and age in the top 10 of an NFL draft. Terry Fontenot, please.
Yep. And really the way we look at it, Rich, is when you're we can have these rules, or people can have these rules that you don't take a running back at a certain point or a guard at a certain point. You have to take a premium position. But what we say is, tell me the player, and who's the particular running back that's sitting there. And when it's a guy like Bijan Robinson, who we don't even put in a running back box when we talk about positionless football, and he's an impact offensive player. And wherever he is, wherever you get him the ball, he's a playmaker. He's a touchdown maker. He's a home run hitter. And he's got the makeup. He's a better person than he is a player, so we know he's going to reach his ceiling. So we believe he is one of the better players in the draft, one of the better people in the draft. So we're really excited to pull that card off the board.
Now there's I don't want to play that at a ton because I don't want to get nabbed or whatever, but there's a couple interesting quotes there that Terry Fontenot said that I want to touch on for just a minute. The first one being that the way they say they viewed, Bijan Robinson. They viewed him as, not just a running back, which we've heard, but now that I picked this out because this is straight up and down from the horse's mouth, so to speak, right? This is from the man making the decision, talking about an offensive weapon, talking about him being a home run hitter. When people act like we didn't get more explosive in the offseason, you can just easily point at our first overall pick as being a move that makes us more explosive.
Yep.
So, what was your talk or thoughts when hearing, what Fontenot had to say there?
I mean, the first thing that pops to my mind is Terry Fontenot and this front office are not going to limit themselves based on other people's criteria.
Right.
Right. Yes. Has the running back position been devalued? Has it been the trend recently that, you're not going to, very rarely do you ever see a guy being the bell cow, outside of Henry and a couple other guys. Everything else is running back by committee, and Henry even today, he's going to get his carries, but there's the other backs in that system. They still get their carries. So it's not just Henry. It's not the days of Emmitt Smith and the Cowboys where, from snap one through all the way through the game that you're basically running Emmitt and you're just having guys come in to spell him so he can take a play or two off to get a breather. It's not that. It's, but at the same time, you're looking at this running back, and he's not just a running back. He's a guy that, offers you the versatility. And, I know we talked earlier about being a master, a jack of all trades, master of none. But this guy excels at all the stuff that he does.
Right. He does all the stuff and he does it well.
Yeah, he does all the stuff and he does
better
it well.
Than well. Yeah.
Yes. And, but I think the important thing was if you were going to put the money in on that kind of guy, or put that draft capital into that kind of guy, he has to they have to mesh personality wise. They have to like who he is as a person.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest differentiator for the Falcons. Other teams have different filters,
different standards, or whatever.
But for the Falcons, it's we want this guy to be a guy who Doesn't mean he can't have hobbies doing other things, but he loves the game of football. But they have good personalities. They're leaders. They're not guys that you necessarily have to like push to, well, maybe, you don't want the guy that you have to bring into the league and be like, well, we got these guys who can show him how to be a pro. They could show him how to be this and that and the other. If you're going to spend draft capital on a guy like that, it's not top 10. Right. Maybe a late first round, but like second, third, fourth, fifth round. If you want to take a guy that's maybe got some really good upside talent wise, but maybe the personality, he needs to mature a little, all those things, you kind of have to babysit him a little bit. That you take them farther back in the draft. The top 10 pick guys, in my opinion, need to, regardless of how they pan out as a pro, talent wise, they at least have to have the intangibles there, and then they have to have they have to be like the kind of person that is like a Bijan or some of the other guys that go in the top 10 that are just have really good personalities, that are really driven. Those are the guys you're going to spend that money on, and that doesn't care whether they're a running back, a left guard,
right,
a center, safety, linebacker, whatever. Luke Kuechly, that guy, in today's NFL, linebackers don't go super duper high. Luke Kuechly would probably, coming out today, he'd be a top 10 pick for the same exact reasons.
Right.
Because he not only is a great player, but he's got a great person, and he also is likely going to elevate everybody around him.
And that's the thing is like the next 2 points that I want to highlight in that little video clip was the two different ways that Terry Fontenot said that Bijan was one of their best players and was a better person.
Yeah.
Talking about like the character makeup, has them feeling like he's going to reach his potential. And you're already seeing videos on Twitter of, Bijan working out with guys like, Jamar Chase and, working on his route running. And this is before we even get to rookie minicamp. Like what they're looking for, whether the, folks in, chat want to admit it or think about it or what have you, they're looking for a new face of the franchise. And part of them thinks that Bijan could be that guy. Part of them, in my opinion, thinks that Bijan could easily be, the face of the Falcons going forward. Especially if a Desmond Ridder doesn't necessarily pan out. If you come through the end of this city or end of this season, you could easily be having Bijan on all the billboards around Atlanta. It wouldn't surprise me one bit. King had an interesting point. He says it's basically the Saints set up with Kamara and Ingram. But see, here's the deal. Where you're comparing Bijan to Kamara, Bijan can also be Ingram. That's the part that, yes, he can do the things that Kamara gave you in the little dump offs, as you're alluding to here, be the dump off guys you can count on run, after the catch and make guys miss and getting those good first downs and hopefully big plays. He can do that while also, big time runs, running with power, running with agility. And those are the things that have me excited as we're moving towards rookie minicamp.
And as a running back, probably one of the most important things to being a pro in the NFL is being able to protect your quarterback. And this guy excelled at that.
Yep.
So
he excels at all the phases.
At this point, I'm not saying we don't know what he's going to be, but at this point, I don't really see a weakness. I guess maybe the only weakness I've heard people say is, when it comes to the pros, he may need to be a little bit more decisive in stop, not trying to make hit that home run every single time and just take what's there. I've heard some talk about that where he he's always looking for that next cut to try to
Keep going.
break it big. Which we'll see how it works out in the NFL. I'm sure he'll learn real quick. Like when you're in college, you can do that because the game doesn't go quite as fast.
Right.
When you're in the pros, things happen so much quicker that sometimes you just don't have, even no matter how quick you are. Sometimes there's nothing you can do, and
Right.
you just take what you can get and move on to the next play. And that's going to be probably something that he needs to learn if he doesn't already know it. Maybe he does.
Well,
it's not
yeah,
a big deal. But
now Tony says, I wish people would stop saying if Desmond Ridder works out. What if Desmond doesn't work out? Unfortunately, right now I'm going to have to until we get at least a full season on, or at least halfway through the season or what have you. I need to see. I would be saying this. I may not be saying this had he had a full year, but unfortunately for Ridder, he was only given 4 games. Now I think it's absolute bullcrap that in a lot of these QB rankings, there's people that have Sam Howell ranked over him. And I'm like, what? And Jordan Love ranked over him. I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, as far as like, you've seen 4 games out of Ridder and you saw him get better each week.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you could take a 1-game Sam Howell and say that he had a better performance than Ridder's 4 games. Like, that don't make much sense to me. Same deal with, Jordan Love. I think you've seen him for a half a football game, maybe 1 or 2 starts at most.
Yeah. I think he probably started a little bit this last year with Rodgers maybe not being in for a couple games, but
right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but he wasn't necessarily like blowing the world away when he did start. So I'm with you in a sense, Tony. Like, I get it. I get the sentiment. I am going to have to see a little bit more, but I do think it is ridiculous that there's publications that have other QBs ranked higher for no reason.
I mean, and Sam Howell wasn't. It's not like Sam Howell was a 1st or 2nd round draft pick. This guy was a 5th round draft pick.
Right.
But to Tony's thing, it's like, why do we keep saying if he does work out? What about if he doesn't? Right now, like, we all know what happens if he doesn't.
Yeah,
we all know. If he doesn't work out, whether it's this coming draft or this next draft or the draft after that, there's always going to be a quarterback. And whether or not you think you're at the end of the rope with Ridder is entirely up to the coaching staff. If it's after this next season and they make a play for Caleb Williams or Drake May or somebody like that, great. Then by all means. But so we all know what that's going to be. If he does work out, that's much more exciting because then you don't have to worry about it. Then you don't have to worry about it.
Like, I want him to work out so bad just so that I can, like, on Twitter go nanny boo boo. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want that to transpire. But I'm hoping Jonathan didn't freeze. Jonathan, you there? I might have lost Jonathan again. He seems to be having a rough technical night. We'll see. I'll remove him for the time being and see if he comes back. Let's see. Here we go. Nighthawk has a good point here. He says, I remember people said Jalen Hurts would not work out and then they needed to draft a top QB. You're right. And they just signed him to a really big contract. So this is one of those situations where I truly hope that I'm wrong. I truly hope that one second, Jonathan's down again. Tell him to try the phone this time. Anyway, so I truly hope that it is a situation where this time next year, we're not even talking about Caleb Williams or Drake May. I really hope so, because that would be much, much better, much more preferable. Bubblegum has a good point. He said, there's no guarantee any of the QBs who were just drafted even play their rookie contracts before being out of the league. Exactly. Even the ones that were drafted that we wanted. there's still a debate whether Justin Fields is going to pan out or not. So no, there's no guarantee. So that's why I have to put that caveat. That's why I put that caveat up there. All right. Moving on to the next topic. We're in the part of the offseason that is like clickbait and trade rumor roundup. It seems like every day, we're about to get into that, Dre. It seems like every day there is some rumor floating around somewhere about whatever. So this is the one that caught my eye earlier this morning. It's only a rumor, but the Cleveland Browns want to trade for CP84. Would you pull the trigger? Me personally, I wouldn't, because it takes away from our dynamic playmakers week in our team. Now, I will say that, Jonathan's trying to come back. He's trying to make a valiant effort. Anyway, we're going to, maybe. Jonathan, this is going to make for a bad audio recording. I just want you to know that. So I saw this on Monday, come across my deal yesterday. It says, NFL trade market, Falcons aging star could be a perfect fit for the Browns. Now, this is from the Browns version of the Falcoholic. Okay. So, take that for a grain of salt. They're just throwing things out there that might stick, that look like that could be interesting. Not clickbait. Well, we call it clickbait, but interesting, just all-season topics. So the question then comes with, can you hear us, Jonathan? He still can't hear me. Can you hear me? All right. Well, eventually he'll maybe get there. So anyway, they were proposing that the Browns trade for aging star Cordell Patterson. And there's a part of me that thinks like it makes sense depending on what the compensation is the fact that you do now have, Bijan Robinson, who gives you a lot of the same things that Cordell does. And it's just going to depend on like how creative and how interesting the Falcon staff wants to use all of their pieces. You heard in that clip earlier that Terry Fontenot was talking about positionless football. Well, Cordell Patterson, believe it or not, is kind of what started that deal. It was Atlanta that was using Cordell Patterson in a way, and then all of a sudden, like Deebo Samuel took over the headlines because San Francisco was a much better team. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I really felt like we were using Cordell like that before San Francisco started using Deebo. Well, now you have a young, very young version who can give you a lot of the same things that Cordell did. Now, Cordell was a wide receiver turned running back, as we anyway, as we talked about earlier, Bijan is a running back who can give you some of the wide receiver stuff. So that was one like interesting tidbit. And like I said, it would have to come down to how they feel like they're going to distribute the ball with Kyle Pitts back in the fold. Drake London coming into his second year. Like you brought in Janu Smith. Millie, Kareem Hunt, if I'm not mistaken, is a free agent. So, no, he's not necessarily still there. So, I hear birds chirping. Can you hear me this time?
I can hear you. I couldn't hear you last time I tried to click in. It was just everything was loading.
Gotcha.
We'll see how long this lasts. I'm having a bad internet day today, apparently.
Who you got for internet over there? We need to get them on the phone. They are messing up.
Comcast, man. I did check my Comcast app, and it was showing as like they're aware of an issue in the area. So we'll see.
Well, can't always do that. Now we kind of got into the clickbait trade rumor segment where we were talking about the first one up so far was the CP84 to the Browns potential.
Yeah.
Now Chris is no, not that one. Chris. Chris is saying can't give up a fresh CP84 in the fourth quarter. Like I don't think you give up Cordell Patterson, and I don't think you give him up because it's it's another weapon. Like you don't have a true
Yeah.
wide receiver 2. So I don't know if you necessarily give up on that. The idea of having that guy that you could split out to take up the wide receiver 2 carries.
Yeah. Like I wouldn't want to give I wouldn't want to give up Cordero Patterson right now. But if somebody comes and is like, "Hey, we'll give you a second round for him," I might say yes.
I mean,
They'll
if they're
listen.
coming with something like that, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to. The age and durability concerns, I think is going to be what will hold back any kind of a deal like that specifically. But like I'm sure they'll listen to him. I personally wouldn't get rid of him. I would or send him packing somewhere else. I think he's too much of a good personality to have in the locker room for one. The guy, by all appearances, the guy seems to love being here. He cheerleads for the team for us to go out and get guys. He just seems like that kind of a guy that you want to have around your locker room. And maybe that's more than a potential future draft pick that might or might not be a bust.
Yeah, no, I agree in the idea that I think he brings. I think he's more beneficial on the team, even if he's splitting, carries and reps and everything else. I think he's a locker room guy who is far more beneficial. And you're also talking about like CP has kick return and punt return ability. That makes him more valuable. I don't know about more valuable than Bijan, but he brings another added value to the team in that aspect. So,
yeah,
I think, I don't think that they get rid of him for peanuts. Somebody would have to be bringing a good offer because you're only saving $4 million against the cap. And as of right now, after we sign our draft class, we're still like 10 million plus or 9 million plus. So it's not like we're hurting.
I'm surprised. I mean, I guess we haven't. I haven't seen anything about the numbers for the Tre Flowers deal, so I don't know what that's looking like. It can't be that big.
I doubt it. With it being a 1-year deal, I highly doubt it's that big. Now, the other one that came up shortly after the draft was this deal. Yeah. Well, this is why it's in the clickbait trade rumor segment.
It is.
Somebody named Connor Powers says the Falcons reportedly had deals in place for Kyler Murray and Ryan Tannehill before the draft, but the two sides couldn't work out the money, per Simon Hunter NFL on the Favorites podcast. I don't believe that for one daggum second.
I will say this. If he had just kept it to Tannehill,
maybe
I could maybe see it. The money is still not right in that situation, but there is unless they did something super crazy, there is no way in hell Arizona, not that they wouldn't potentially want to, but financially, it would absolutely ruin them.
Right, and not just that. Like, there's a deal like with the way that contract structured is like they could like potentially get out of it without like much repercussion after the end of next season.
Yeah, but not for this season. Like, because if they traded him this season, like I think the number I read was something like $90-something million comes due like immediately.
That's the thing. That's what makes this like fully in the clickbait like BS area. But I figured it would be good to talk about because like you start to see like silly things like this pop up, and all this does for a casual fan is reinforce the idea that maybe they aren't sold on Ridder. And I think that they are sold on Ridder until they see that they aren't. Does that make sense? Like until he proves otherwise, they have like Ridder is their guy.
Yeah.
So I completely agree with, Bubba, it says this is fake AF. Yes, exactly. Because think about everything that you've heard, like Terry talk about, like character-wise, as we were talking about before in the last segment. Same thing with Arthur Smith, talking about like the character that they want. And Murray has a reputation of being lazy, of being like only focused on Kyler Murray. And the more extended version of that clip that we played earlier talks about, Terry talks about wanting guys that are unselfish and wanting to win and wanting the team to win and not concerned about like personal stats and carries and stuff. He was talking about Bijan, but when you hear him talk about a player like that, it's hard for them then to turn around and apply that to Kyler Murray and everything that we have heard about Murray, to the fact that whether it was BS or not, they put a clause in there about playing video games. Like there are Reddit pages out there that are correlations of Kyler Murray's stats and double XP weekend on Call of Duty. So that's, crazy.
Yeah.
So anyway, that one to me was full, full cap.
I am sure that Kyler is a good dude. Okay. I could be wrong. He might not be a good dude, but like, he seems like he's a good guy. Right. But when it comes to football, it just seems like he's more into what can I do for me. And, they can say whatever they want after the fact, but they literally had it built into his this latest contract, or about like having him like stipulations on watching film, and then they had it removed only after the backlash. But the fact that you even had to have that there to begin there,
that tells you everything you need to know.
That is not a I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm the most self-motivated person in the world. I am not. My wife can attest to that. But
hey, you're standing on your porch right now trying to finish this show out. So
I
that.
got to do what you got to do sometimes. But at the same time, like, as an NFL franchise, especially for franchise quarterback, a guy that you're going to pay multi-generational wealth to, like, this is the kind of guy that you want to make sure, if you're going to send a guy, give a guy that much money, he better be self-motivated. He better be the guy that is the example of how to be a pro. You don't give money to a guy, or you shouldn't be giving money to a guy who's like, yeah, I could be studying film right now, but man, there's that double XP weekend on Warzone this weekend, and I'm just
double XP.
So like, again, Kyler, based on everything we know, both from a Kyler perspective and from a Falcons culture perspective, exact polar opposites. So he doesn't fit that way. And on top of that, either Arizona was going to eat all $90+ million, or there was going to have to be some part of the trade where we were going to have to take on a sizable chunk of that $90 million for a guy that wants to play Call of Duty instead of playing, being franchise quarterback. So
that's right.
But now the Tannehill part, that had all the earmarks. Like, if it had just been that, if it had just been Tannehill, there was a trade in place, I could even understand that. But again, it just doesn't make sense based on what we've heard from the front office. Like, literally before all this came out, they had came out and said that he was a starter. They told Heineke that he was a starter. They showed Calais Campbell, sat and watched film and told him of the vision, and that's what got Calais into Atlanta. To go through all of this and to be BSing everybody to the point where you're like, we think this guy is the future. Oh, but Tannehill, what? All right, come on in. He's the guy now. you go be backup, even though we told everybody you were going to be the. It just didn't make any sense at all.
Now, another one, I didn't pull the clip on it or whatever, but another one was like kind of dusted up a little bit yesterday was clickbait of like Yannick Ngakoue. The team had been linked to Yannick Ngakoue. Well, that link was just, again, another article, another like website. I think this was Bleacher Report that was like putting together like, oh, the best landing spot for the remaining free agents. And which is, it's a fine article to have, but there was no like significant connection for Yannick to Atlanta. And now it may happen before, training camp goes, but I as of right now, there is no like solid connection for Yannick in Atlanta. So, and I feel like now, granted, like obviously Yannick has the steady production, but the idea that he's a not carbon copy, but he's the same style of rusher that Arnold Ebiketie is, that 250, 260-ish, type deal. Like he's that kind of a rusher. You already have a handful of those, D'Angelo Malone, Lorenzo Carter. Obviously, Yannick is more consistent than those guys, but I would imagine that you're trying to give those, like especially Malone and Ebiketie, a chance to, take a step forward. So,
well, yeah, but also if you're in a if you're looking at this upcoming season with the moves you've made and you feel like, man, we could really, push for division title. We could, at the very minimum playoff push, try to get, try to do as much as we possibly can on that end of it. So somewhat in a win now, not necessarily win Super Bowl now, but be a winning team now, and be in that conversation, then bringing in a guy like Yannick, who has been super productive, while Ebiketie and Malone have the promise, the production hasn't been there yet, so you can't count on that. You bring in a guy like Ngakoue, he's a guy that the likelihood is that you can count on, 8 to 9 sacks would be my guess. Is at least would be in their head of like, hey, let's bring this guy in, jumpstart the pass rush, and also be more of a model for our other guys who are in the same vein to like look at him and see like what he does and how he prepares and all this other stuff, and to help out with that.
I think if you were to bring in Ngakoue, I think that would be a vote of almost like a vote of lack of confidence on Ebiketie, because Yannick, because of his consistency, to me, brings out like eats into that snap, or eats into that playing time, unless like Tony's saying Yannick won't be playing outside linebacker. I don't think that Ebiketie is playing outside linebacker. I think he's playing more DN in what Nielsen's going to do. Now, it'll be interesting to see what he does with Lorenzo Carter. Does Carter play more outside linebacker? So, like, that's one of our biggest, like, question marks at this junction. Now, the last
I think Carter does go outside linebacker because I think he's shown to be a better coverage guy than than maybe we thought. So,
yeah, and I agree, but because he's also a little bit on the lighter side, if I'm not mistaken. So, I'd have to go back and double check. Now, the last little clickbait trade rumor, it's not really clickbait or trade rumor. I just thought I should throw it out there. This was from a quote from Jason McCourty talking about his like 32 teams and 32 things, or like 32 players that he should be watching or should be excited for. And he states for the Falcons, it should be Arthur Smith is what we should be excited for. He said he was in Tennessee when Smith joined the franchise as a defensive quality control coach. Judging by what he did last season with Atlanta's young offensive talent, including Drake London, Algier, and Desmond Ridder, the Falcons fans should be excited about the future of this team. After back-to-back 7-win campaigns in Smith's first 2 seasons as head man, I'm excited to see if he can break through in a wide-open NFC South. I have to completely agree with him. Like,
Yeah.
I myself am very excited to what this team could do and what this team has the potential of being, especially in in this NFC South, with the idea that, we could transition into talking about on paper, we have the easiest schedule. Like on paper, going off of the opponents we had last year, or what our opponents did last year, we have the easiest strength of schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So, what were your thoughts on Jason Cordy, or Jason McCourty? What he said?
I totally agree. I mean, if you look at Arthur Smith and you look at what he's had to deal with the last couple of years, with regards to the talent on the roster, and then especially like first year head coach. He had an established quarterback who could distribute the ball. Didn't really have a running game, didn't really have a defense. Still won 7 games. Then you come to this year, this past season, and your franchise quarterback that you've had for many years now, 14 years I think it was, 13 years, and you ship him off. You bring in Marcus Mariota. You still don't really have a defense, though it looked better. I honestly think, like, as the season went on, that defense, while it wasn't getting to the quarterback, we were, routinely holding teams to like the low 20s and in some cases the high teens. And especially we did a lot of really good stuff in halftime adjustments. Teams maybe got out on us a little bit in the first quarter or first half. And then we'd see some progression in the second half, along with the offense doing its thing. And you had a roster last year that was absolutely decimated by salary cap issues.
Right.
One of probably the lowest least talented rosters in the whole NFL, and you still won 7 games.
Mm-hmm.
And you were this close to probably winning at least 3 or 4 more. So, the potential was there for a 10, 11, maybe even as much as 12-win team. And so we were just this close to a division, even if we didn't have a division that was 8 and 9 as the division winner. Even if they had won a couple more games, we would still been that close if a couple more games had gone our way.
Right.
So it wasn't like we got, this team overperformed massively this past year. We looked competitive in almost every single game. And it's just, to think that you're going to then add talent to that roster. Some of your young guys are going to be another year into the system. You're just adding talent everywhere on this team, and to think that you shouldn't expect to necessarily be a little bit better than 7-10 team. You should be at least a 9-win, 10-win, 11-win team is where I expect them to be. If I get anything more than that, that's gravy on top. Now, does that mean that if we come out and go 6-11 or 7-10 again or 8-9, that I think it's a failure of a season? I personally don't. Again, it all depends on how we look, how things bounce our way.
If it's a 7-win team and we look lost out there, a
Yeah,
lot of the time, then I'm going to have a problem.
Well, if that's the case, then that comes off as more like wasted effort because you had the talent this time, but you like just things didn't execute well. Which again, that's one thing we can probably say for the most part since Arthur Smith has been here. By and large, this has not been a problem necessarily with execution in a lot of cases. We're one of the least penalized teams in the league since he's been with us.
Right.
We don't kill ourselves a lot with penalties. And so if you can keep that going while adding to the talent and the ability to pull out some of these closer games, then, I think it's an easy thing to look at and say, yeah, I can see this team absolutely winning 10, 11, 12 games.
Yep.
And I'm kind of in that country, or kind of in that mold. So
yeah, no, I'm with you as well there. I'm thinking that like 10 wins, I feel like should be the floor in a lot of aspects. 9, 10 wins. I think this year should be Arthur Smith's like first winning season. Like, does that equal, as Nick is saying here, does that equal, NFC South champions? Possibly, very well could. But I do think that you get some like serious like excitement going on. Let's see. Big Low Country is in the house. What's going on, Big Low? He got in here and got everybody riled up, chat, which is great. We're gonna have Low back on here for too much longer, and
absolutely,
and see what's going on.
Get somebody on here in case my internet decides to go take a dump
haywire
again. Yeah.
But I mean, if we can't get Low on, it's probably because he's going to be signing with the Falcons. I don't know if you've seen like some of his like workout videos, the true number 7 out here. But anyway, so, but I think that's pretty much going to just about wrap it up for us. I know that you're, having to pace your front porch, which I appreciate you like pushing through that greatly. Hopefully next week, Comcast will get their crap together. But I do think.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, I do think, not to fully close it up yet, but I do think that in the past few years, the NFC has been there for the taking, especially last year, even more so this year with like Tom Brady out and Derek Carr in. There's no reason why we can't compete for the division this year and get into the playoffs and maybe have, maybe an early exit, but maybe you win a game. That would be fun. But I think that the arrow is definitely pointing up, and like I said, rookie mini camp coming around the corner has just got me definitely hyped about it.
Absolutely. I hope for a winning season. Doesn't be in contention for the division champ. But I don't necessarily need us to win it this year. Do I think we can? Absolutely. Do I think we're going to be in that fight? I fully believe that to be the case. Do I think we need to? No. But I want to see a winning year. I would like to see us get into the playoffs, even if it's, get our feet wet and get knocked out in the first round. Even if that happens, I'd like to get into the playoffs, because then that's just more validation of how things are going. Like the process of getting better every second, getting a little bit better. And while it may take a while to get there, maybe this is like the exact opposite of the Dan Quinn effect. The Dan Quinn effect, first year comes in, blows doors off first half of the first year, kind of stumbles in the second half of the year, then comes back second year and we're in the Super Bowl. And it was kind of all, we should have gone back to the Super Bowl the following year, but then it was kind of all downhill. And once adversity hit, it was almost like he didn't know what to do with it.
Right.
Whereas this is more of a slow and steady wins the race kind of a deal, is the way I'm looking at this. That's why, unless things absolutely just implode, and we're talking winless season here, unless something like that happens, I just don't understand people that are like, well, he's got to get to the playoffs, or he's got to, make a deep run this year, or he's on the hot seat, or whatever. And it's just, I think if we continue to progress, we see a better team this year than we did last year, because we're going to come back next offseason and we're going to have more money to spend. We're going to be in a good position cap wise. And can you imagine taking this team, what we currently think of as the roster as it is, and you come back next season and dump another 40, 50, $60 million into this roster on top of that? And it's just awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so looking forward to it. So
The future is definitely like looking bright in a way that it hasn't looked since, in a lot of aspects, since 2008, since that's what the turning over of a new quarterback does for you, is it gives
Yep.
you a different type of optimism, a different type of excitement. Like, I think there towards the end, we may not fully, like, I understand it, I guess, in a sense, but I think the fan base as a whole may not fully understand or appreciate what Ryan did for this organization until maybe a few years down the road. But I understand why people weren't super excited about it, like especially there towards the end, because you never really did seem like you could get over the hump. You got the same type of performance from, like, Matt Ryan was very steady, very
Yep.
consistent, and that didn't breed a lot of excitement. Now you have, the, like, hope springs eternal. Now you have the new version of a quarterback, one that can move around more, give you that kind of excitement. I mean, you saw him in the Tampa Bay game and the Arizona game, like, pull out of sacks and run, so he has that ability to him. So, like, there's that kind of excitement. Then you have the excitement of, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts coming back, Drake London. Like, there's some true, like, palpable excitement, and I'll be interested to see how it does end up. Before we start really wrapping it up, Millie had a good question. With the schedule coming out in a couple days, 2 days, who are y'all hoping for as an opener this year? Me, it's a division rival. Let's get a leg up early. So who are you hoping for as far as like a division, like not like an opener? Do you want it to be like, do you want to open at home? Do you want to open on the road? Do you want to
I
open
mean,
with like the Saints?
I would love to open I would love to open at home. If it's a divisional foe, I want it to be Tampa Bay. I don't trust going against the Saints week one.
Right.
But yeah, like Tampa Bay, honestly, I think is probably going to be the weakest in the division. That's just my personal take. And while I understand, like, let's get let's get the Saints, let's get the Panthers. Panthers, even if their offense is like a step back from last year somehow or some way, that defense is still really good last year. So that's a really, really good defense. And I would rather be going up against Tampa Bay and let's try to get a week one win under our belts to, again, try to build that momentum. And then we can go into the, take on the Saints, take it on whoever else in the NFC or AFC that we got to take on. But I would like to try to build some momentum coming out of what looks like, barring weirdness with injuries and stuff like that, looks like this is going to be an exciting build up from, rookie minicamp, OTAs, training camp, preseason. Then you get to the regular season. It just I can feel like a momentum, a wave building. And I would like for it to get there and then not run into a brick wall. I would like to get over the hump, get that first week win, so we're over 500, and continue that momentum going.
Right. Yeah. No, I think I'm with you on that. I think I would like to, like, come out, whether it's, any of the division, like South rivals would be a nice home opener. Maybe get a win out of the way. Like, yeah, you got, Carolina still has a good defense, but they have a whole new regime. So it may take them a little bit to get moving in the right direction. So I think an easier win would be either against Carolina or Tampa Bay. But I don't know. I think week one, I would like to see. Let's start with like Kenderson's got I don't know about on the road, But I don't know. Are we playing Arizona on the road? Because I wouldn't mind opening up with Arizona. Completely new regime who doesn't have like their quarterback or nothing like that. Just like start out with a win, start out moving in the right direction kind of deal. That's
Yeah.
my thoughts there.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
with Antonio. I hope we don't have a London game. I don't think we're going to have one this year.
I thought I read somewhere that we might, but
Oh, did you?
I can't say for sure.
Yeah.
Well, the way they're working with the schedule this year, apparently, like each schedule is like its own little free agent and can kind of do. Team can have multiple Thursday night games now. There's going to be a Black Friday game on Friday.
Yeah, that whole deal. That just like you're gonna sit here. As much as the players hate Thursday night games, and you're gonna sit here and try to talk about player safety, but that's a whole other topic. We could do 20 minutes on that alone. But
they what they need to do is they need to add an extra
bye week.
An extra bye week and schedule Thursday night games around the bye weeks.
Either coming off your bye or going on whatever, and I know Thursday night games ends up being like a little mini bye. It still ain't a bye. You still have to turn around and get ready, for another games. It's just too close. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us tonight. We have talked all the talk, talked all the things. And Jonathan is a trooper. He finished the show on the porch.
Tried to, hey man, fresh air is out here.
There you go. Keep your eye on the channel. We'll have something out on either Friday or Saturday, depending on if YouTube gives me a hassle or not. And as always, y'all can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Grimm1128, GRIMM1128. Jonathan?
At Jonathan M. Holder. Come by, say hi.
And we'll be back next Tuesday with another live show. So bring your questions and your comments and your likes and your shares and all that good fun stuff. And
absolutely.
As always, Falcons fans, rise up.
Rise up.
Bam, bam.